Welcome to the Daily AI News, brought to you by the Day After AI News channel.
Today is Friday, February 21st, 2026. And if you take a step back and really just look at the headlines today, you start to notice this very specific theme emerging.
Right.
We aren't really talking about the shiny new toys anymore. We are talking about chatbots writing poetry or generating funny images of cats in space.
No, we've definitely moved past that whole novelty phase, I think. Today is really about scale. And more specifically, it's about integration.
Exactly. It feels like we've hit this moment where AI has just quietly slipped into the foundation of everything. Like it's routing traffic in Africa, it's managing global water systems, and it's even rewriting employment laws over in Europe.
Yeah, it's becoming the utility company, not just the gadget.
That's the perfect way to frame it. We are looking at this era of, I guess you'd call it invisible infrastructure. For those of you listening, you don't see electricity moving through the wires in your house, but you definitely know when the lights go out.
Exactly. AI is becoming that current. It's managing our money, our roads, our safety. And today's news really highlights what happens when we just hand over the keys to that infrastructure.
And unfortunately, we also have to talk about what happens when bad actors get those keys. We have a story today about a scam in Montana that is, honestly, every parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah, that one is tough.
But let's start with the invisible stuff first. Let's start our deep dive with money.
Right. Digital payments.
Most of us don't really think about what happens when we tap our phone at the store or click buy online. We just get annoyed if it doesn't work.
Right.
But there's a massive shift happening right now in the actual plumbing of the financial system.
There is. Historically, banks and payment processors use these very rigid rule books, totally binary. If transaction is over $500 and the location is new, then decline.
It was a very blunt instrument.
Very blunt. And that's why you'd get your card declined on vacation, even though you had plenty of money in the bank.
The dreaded computer says no moment.
Exactly. But now, in 2026, we move to real-time learning. The systems aren't following a static rule book anymore. They're actually scoring the context of the transaction in milliseconds.
When you say scoring, what exactly are they looking at? Because that sounds a little bit like they're watching my every move.
Well, in a sense, they are. They look at your device ID, your login history, the location, obviously, but also things like velocity checks.
Velocity checks. That sounds like they're timing how fast I type or something.
Not your typing speed exactly, but the speed of the data. Like how fast are requests coming from this specific IP address? Is this user moving through the checkout process at a normal human pace or a bot pace?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's analyzing the actual rhythm of the transaction.
Okay, so if I'm shopping like a regular human, it lets me through.
Yeah.
But what if the system glitches? Does this AI actually help me then, or does it just shrug and lock me out?
That's where it gets really interesting for you as the consumer. There's this feature gaining massive traction right now called smart retries. Let's say you buy a coffee and the payment fails because of just a momentary timeout at the processor level, old system. The transaction fails. You're embarrassed standing there at the counter.
Right. I have to try again or dig out a different card while the line waits.
Exactly. With smart retries, the AI sees the error code, realizes it's a technical glitch and not a lack of funds on your end, and it instantly reroutes the payment through a different pathway or just retries it milliseconds later.
Oh.
The user never even know it failed.
So it's basically fixing the pipes while the water is already flowing.
Precisely. But in tech, this intelligence is being weaponized on the other side too. We are seeing a massive spike in what they call synthetic identities.
I've heard this term floating around. It sounds like a sci-fi villain. What exactly is a synthetic identity?
Think of it like a Frankenstein's monster of personal data. A fraudster might take a real social security number. Often they steal these from a child or somebody who doesn't actively use credit, and they combine it with a fake name, a fake address, and a burner email.
So the person doesn't actually exist, but the data looks real enough to pass a background check.
Exactly. And because the SSN is real, it passes that initial automated filter. The fraudsters then nurture these identities over time.
Wait, they nurture them?
Yeah, they apply for small loans, they pay them back, and they build up a legitimate credit score. They let the fake identity age like a fine wine. Then once the credit limit is high enough, they max out all the cards and just vanish.
That is incredibly sophisticated. It's not just a smash and grab, it's a total long con.
It is, and that's exactly why you need AI on the defense side now. A human analyst can't spot a synthetic identity because all the individual data points look completely fine.
Right, the credit score is good.
Yeah. You need a model that can look at millions of accounts at once and say, wait a minute, why do these 50 supposedly different people all log in from the same device cluster at 3 a.m.
It's pattern recognition at a scale we literally can't touch. And speaking of scale and patterns, let's transition and talk about traffic. If there is any system in the world that needs optimization, it's the morning commute.
Absolutely.
There's a study out of Cameroon that caught my eye for this deep dive.
Yes, this is from the Yango group. They've been deploying these autonomous routing algorithms in African cities, specifically Douala and Yaoundé in Cameroon.
And the numbers they reported are wild. They claim they saved commuters 136,000 hours in 2025.
Just in those two cities alone. Across all their African markets, they're claiming 2 million hours saved.
Okay, I have to be the skeptic here for the listeners. We've all had Google Maps and Waze on our phones for years. How is this actually different? Is it just telling people to take a left turn a block earlier?
It's a totally fair question. Standard GPS reacts to traffic. It sees a red line on the map and routes you around it. What Yango is doing, and what we're seeing in smart city tech generally right now, is predictive modeling of the infrastructure itself.
So it's not looking at the individual cars, it's looking at the actual road.
It's looking at the rhythm of the city. It factors in traffic light cycles, road surface conditions, the weather, and deep historical congestion patterns for that very specific time of day.
Oh, I see.
It's a self-learning architecture. So it predicts what the traffic will look like in 20 minutes when you get to that intersection, not just what it looks like right now.
That's the key difference then. Reacting versus predicting.
Right. And in rapidly developing cities like Douala, where the physical infrastructure is seriously strained, reclaiming that lost productivity, those 136,000 hours, that is a direct economic injection into the city.
It's interesting you mentioned predicting flows, because that transitions perfectly to our next story. If we can predict the flow of cars using historical data, it turns out we can do the exact same thing for water.
Yes. This is a really significant development for climate tech. We're talking about AIFL, artificial intelligence for floods. It's a brand new model just detailed in the journal Nature.
And this solves a very specific problem with the old weather models, right? I think most of you listening probably assume we just simulate the weather, like in a giant video game.
That's exactly how traditional physics-based models work. They literally try to simulate the physics of the atmosphere and the hydrology, the gravity, the friction, soil saturation. It's incredibly accurate, but it is computationally massive and very, very slow.
It's like trying to predict where a baseball will land by calculating the wind resistance on every single stitch of the ball.
That is a perfect analogy. AIFL takes a completely different approach. It doesn't try to simulate the physics drop by drop. It just looks at history. It was pre-trained on this massive data set called ERA5 land.
Break that down for us. What exactly is ER5 land?
It's essentially a reanalysis of global weather records going back 40 years. It's a rigid record of what actually happened.
Okay.
So AIFL studies this history to learn how specific river basins react to different weather conditions. Then it fine-tunes that understanding by pulling in current operational forecasts, which is called IFS data.
So it basically looks at the current rain clouds and says, I've seen this exact pattern before, and 40 years ago it caused a flood here.
In a nutshell, yes. And because it's pattern matching, rather than trying to solve complex physics equations in real time, it's much faster. And according to the Nature study, it actually outperforms the physics models in detecting extreme events across nearly 19,000 river basins.
That is a massive upgrade for global early warning systems. It just seems like AI is getting exceptionally good at spotting these physical and biological surges, and we're seeing it with the flu this year, too.
We really are. The 2025-26 flu season has been brutal for a lot of people. But the University of Arizona has this global flu view tool that is fascinating because it cuts out the middleman entirely.
The middleman being the doctor in this case.
Or the lab results, yeah. Usually we only know a snooze surge is happening 2 weeks after it actually starts because it takes time for people to go to the clinic, get tested, and for those tests to be reported to the CDC.
Right, it's a lagging indicator.
Exactly. Global Flu View uses self-reported symptoms directly from users via their phones.
So it's basically crowdsourcing sickness.
It is. And by aggregating all that noisy, localized data, they actually identified the current surge weeks before the CDC data confirmed it. It's a difference between 1 million people saying, I think I'm getting sick today, versus waiting for the lab to confirm they were sick last week.
That speed definitely saves lives. But let's go from the common flu to the really rare stuff. There's a major development out of China regarding rare disease diagnosis that I think directly addresses one of the biggest fears people have about AI in medicine.
You're talking about the black box problem.
Exactly.
Yes, this is the deep rare system. Diagnosing rare diseases is incredibly hard. Doctors often call it the diagnostic odyssey because it can literally take years of testing to figure out what's wrong. Deep Rare uses clinical symptoms, which are called phenotypes, to suggest a diagnosis.
Just to clarify for everyone listening, phenotypes essentially means what you can observe, right? Like patient has a tremor or patient has a specific rash.
Exactly. Observable clinical traits. Using just those visual or reported traits, the AI hit about 57.18% accuracy. But when they added the patient's genetic data to the mix, that accuracy jumped to over 70%.
But here's my issue with this, and I think a lot of patients would agree. If the computer just spits out a paper saying you have this obscure genetic condition and the human doctor doesn't know why the computer thinks that, do they actually trust it?
That is the textbook black box problem.
Yeah.
Usually an AI gives you an answer but provides no explanation for how it got there. Deep Rare is fundamentally different. It is designed to provide a chain of evidence.
Oh, how so?
It actually outlines its entire reasoning process step by step, explicitly linking the specific phenotype and the specific gene it found to the final diagnosis.
Oh, so it literally shows its work.
It shows its work. And in the medical field, that is the only way you get clinicians to actually trust and adopt the tool.
I love that. I want to pivot now to the technology we are actually going to hold in our hands today. It's 2026, and the phone wars are still raging. But looking at the new Samsung S26 versus the iPhone 17, it feels like we are watching a battle of core philosophies, not just hardware specs.
It really does. On one side, you have Samsung with the S26 and their new Galaxy AI 4.0. They are leaning incredibly hard into the utility philosophy. They're using the new Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Right, like real-time translation in over 20 languages, the scam call detection, and that sketch-to-image feature. It's all about tools.
Get stuff done phone.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you have Apple. The iPhone 17 with Apple Intelligence is clearly doubling down on the privacy and conversational philosophy.
They're trying to keep everything on device as much as technically possible.
Which means your data isn't pinging a server somewhere.
Right. Siri 3.0 is designed to be a deeply conversational partner that knows your personal context, your emails, your schedule, but doesn't share it with the cloud. It's a slower, definitely more cautious approach compared to Samsung, but it really appeals to the privacy-conscious consumer.
Although there is a rumor about the upcoming premium AirPods Pro that sounds, well, frankly, it sounds a little invasive. Infrared cameras.
It sounds wild when you first hear it, but it makes a lot of sense if you think about the push toward ambient computing. The hardware leak suggests these AirPods would use infrared cameras not for taking actual photos of people around you, but for environmental sensing and gesture control.
So you mean I could just wave my hand in the air while walking down the street to skip a podcast track?
Or you could look at a landmark, and the AI knows what you're looking at based on the infrared depth beta. It provides physical context to the AI without the massive privacy violation of a full-color camera constantly recording everything you see.
I guess that's the modern trade-off. We get convenience in exchange for surveillance, even if it is just infrared surveillance. And speaking of trade-offs, we really need to talk about the creative industries today. We've touched on this before, but the tension in independent film is getting palpable.
It is. We're seeing video generation tools like Google VO and Luma basically becoming standard operating procedure now. These allow a solo director to generate incredible VFX, complex lighting setups, even entirely new scenes just from text prompts.
And people in the industry are starting to call this era the lonelier set, which is just such a heartbreaking term to me.
It is sad, but it's highly accurate. On one hand, it's objectively amazing. A kid with a great script and zero budget can now make a massive sci-fi epic in their bedroom. But on the other hand, you lose the crew.
Yeah, you lose the lighting gaffer, the set dresser, the costume designer.
You lose the happy accident. That serendipity of collaboration where someone on set says, hey, what if we move this practical light over here? It completely changes the emotional tone of the scene for the better.
Exactly. We are moving toward this hyper-efficient one-person pipeline. It saves a fortune, but it risks becoming creatively sterile. And transparency is becoming a huge issue in this space, too. Google just released Lyria 3 for music generation inside Gemini.
Right, where you can prompt it for a chill lo-fi track with specific lyrics, and it just makes a full song.
Yeah, but they are making a really big deal out of their Synthy Eye feature.
The digital watermark.
Yes. The idea is that if we are going to flood the world with AI-generated movies and music, we desperately need an invisible stamp baked into the file that says this was made by a machine.
Transparency is definitely good. But unfortunately, sometimes the fake stuff is already out there doing real damage before anyone can check a watermark. Which brings us to the story out of Montana that you mentioned at the top of the show. This really highlights the dark side of high-fidelity audio generation.
It really does. This is the case of Chris Sampson. She's a mother living in Montana. She received a phone call, and the caller ID literally said it was her daughter's cell phone.
She answers the phone, and she immediately hears her daughter's voice, crying, screaming for help.
And then a man comes on the line demanding a ransom. It's a classic virtual kidnapping script, but with a terrifying modern upgrade. Because her daughter wasn't actually kidnapped, she was perfectly safe at work. The voice on the phone was a complete AI clone.
It's chilling.
What I want to know is, how much audio do these scammers actually need to make a voice clone that convincing? Are they recording hours of someone's phone calls?
That's the most scary part of this whole thing. No, they aren't. They are literally just scraping short public clips from TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Just a few seconds of clear audio is often enough for these 2026 models to generate a highly convincing dynamic clone.
So if you have a public social media profile where you talk to the camera, you're basically a target.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Anyone with public audio is.
So how do you protect yourself? If I get a call like that and I hear a family member crying, how do I know it's fake?
You have to train yourself to look for the psychological triggers. These scammers completely rely on your panic. Red flag number 1. They will never let you get off the phone.
You're right.
Red flag number 2. They won't let you talk to the victim directly for more than a few seconds. They just play a short loop of crying. And they demand money right now, usually via crypto or a wire transfer.
So the extreme urgency is the tell.
The urgency is the actual weapon. If you can force yourself to pause, mute the call, and try to call your child's phone from another line, the spell usually breaks. They also often fail basic proof-of-life questions if you ask something only your family would know.
It's terrifying that parents have to be that vigilant now, but voice technology isn't just being used for local scams. The defense sector is looking at it for something much, much louder.
You're talking about the drone swarms.
Yeah. The Pentagon just announced a $100 million prize for developing voice-controlled autonomous drone swarms. And the companies entering this competition are super interesting.
SpaceX and xAI, both Elon Musk's companies, are jumping into the race, which is highly ironic given Musk's long history of warning the public against lethal AI and summoning the demon.
But here they are, actively building the demon. Why voice control, though? Why would a soldier need to shout at a drone swarm?
It's not really about shouting over battlefield noise. It's about operating in jammed environments. In any high-end modern conflict, you have to assume GPS will be heavily jammed. Traditional radio signals will be blocked.
Okay.
The military wants drone swarms that can operate totally autonomously and coordinate with each other verbally or through localized acoustic networks without relying on satellite guidance at all.
So if the satellites go completely dark, the swarm just keeps fighting based on voice commands.
That's the ultimate goal of the $100 million prize.
This feels like a really good time to ask a broader question. We have autonomous drone swarms, we have voice cloning kidnappings, we have algorithmic firing in the workplace. Who is actually in charge of all this? Is anyone writing the rules?
Well, regulators are certainly trying, but right now it's a bit of a mess. Here in the U.S., as of our February 20th update, we currently have a massive patchwork of state laws.
Right. I've seen bills passing in Washington and Oregon focusing specifically on chatbot safety, and California just introduced the Digital Dignity Act to try and stop those deepfakes we were just talking about.
Exactly. But if you are a major tech company trying to navigate 50 different, sometimes contradictory state rule books is an absolute nightmare. So we are now seeing House GOP leaders asking the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, to formally review all AI laws.
They want to wipe the slate clean.
They want a unified federal standard. There are very strong rumors in Washington right now of an upcoming Trump executive order that would explicitly preempt these state laws. The political argument being made is the single federal framework avoids the patchwork and speeds up American innovation.
Even if that federal standard might be much weaker than what a state like California wants to enforce?
That is the likely trade-off we're looking at, yes. And you could really contrast that U.S. approach with what's happening in Italy. Their new AI Act officially kicks in this October, and it is intensely focused on labor protections.
Italy has always been very protective of its workers. How does the AI Act change things there?
They are requiring an organic framework for AI in employment. What that means practically is they are classifying any algorithm used for hiring or firing as high risk.
So if I'm a manager and I use an AI tool to screen a stack of resumes, I'm automatically in the high-risk category.
You are. And legally, you have to be able to fully explain how that AI made its decision. If you can't explain it, or if you violate the fairness rules, the fines are severe. They can reach up to 1,500 euros per employee.
Wow, that is a massive price tag for corporate efficiency.
It is designed to force companies to keep a real human in the loop for any decision that affects a person's livelihood.
Just one quick corporate business note before we wrap up today's deep dive. I saw Meta is buying chips from NVIDIA again.
Yes, millions of them. They just bought a massive order of the new Vera Rubin GPUs and Grace CPUs. It's a very clear signal to the market that despite Meta trying so hard to build their own custom in-house silicon, they are facing delays. They simply can't outpace NVIDIA yet.
They still need that raw horsepower to keep training these massive models we've been talking about.
Exactly. They are buying the bricks to build the infrastructure.
So let's try to pull all of this together for the listener. Today we have AI managing our bank accounts and fixing payment errors before we even see them. We have AI predicting river floods globally better than traditional physics can. We have it diagnosing rare genetic diseases. But we also have it enabling terrifyingly convincing phone scams and automating lethal drone warfare.
It really all goes back to that core idea we started with today, invisible infrastructure. We are actively moving from a society that uses AI as a tool to a society that entirely relies on it. It's becoming the silent traffic controller for our money, our cars, and our water.
So what is the final takeaway for the listener today? What should they be thinking about this weekend?
I think the provocation is this. As we enthusiastically let AI take over these critical invisible systems, we seriously risk forgetting how they actually work.
Right.
If the AI routing the city's water or the global money supply breaks or gets hacked by a bad actor, do we still have people who know how to operate the valves manually? We are handing over the keys to the engine room right now, and we need to make absolutely sure we don't lock ourselves out.
That is a very sobering thought. Don't lock yourself out of the engine room. Well, as always, thank you for helping us navigate the noise today.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you all for listening to the Daily AI News on the Deep Dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we'll catch you next time.
Before you go, please subscribe to the podcast Prime. And if you enjoyed today's episode, hit like to support us. Thanks for listening and see you next time.